The Haunting of Willow House. In the peaceful town of Clarksburg, West Virginia, there stood an old decrepit house known as Willow House. It had been abandoned for decades, its windows boarded up, and its once vibrant garden now overrun with weeds. Town folks whispered about the house, sharing tales of eerie sounds and ghostly apparitions. But the most chilling story was that of a child who died there many years ago. The story began in the 1920s, when the house was owned by the Thompsons, a very young couple with a baby boy named Samuel. One fateful night, the young Thompson couple attended a lavish party while carelessly leaving Samuel unattended in his crib. A terrible storm rolled in, and the power went out, plunging the house into darkness. As the wind from the storm picked up, it shook the old elm tree that was next to the house, and one of its giant limbs cracked off and fell right through the massive stained glass window that the baby's crib sat next to. It sent giant shards of glass down onto the crib with the baby. When the Thompsons returned, they found Samuel lifeless, covered in glass and blood, having succumbed to his injuries. Since that tragic night, Willow House has never known peace. Every new owner who moved in was driven away by the same terrifying phenomenon, the sound of a baby crying, echoing through the empty halls. The cries were heart-wrenching, filled with a longing that sent shivers down the spine. Those who dared stay longer reported seeing a ghostly figure wandering the house, searching for his parents. One autumn evening, a young couple, the Parkers, moved into Willow House, unaware of its dark history. They were drawn to its vintage charm and the promise of a fresh start. On their first night, as they settled into bed, they heard it, the unmistakable sound of a baby crying. At first they thought it was a neighbor's child, but the cries grew louder, more desperate. Terrified, they searched the house, but they found nothing. The cries continued night after night, growing more insistent. The Parkers tried to ignore it, but the haunting presence of Samuel became impossible to deny. They saw him in the shadows, a small figure with white, sorrowful eyes, reaching out for his parents. Desperate for answers, the Parker delved into the history of the house and learned of Samuel's tragic fate. They decided to hold a seance, hoping to communicate with the restless spirit. And as they sat in the dimly lit living room, candles flickering, they called out to Samuel, offering their sympathy and promising to help him find peace. The air grew cold, and the candles flickered violently. Suddenly, the ghostly figure of Samuel appeared before them, his eyes filled with tears. He reached out, and the Parkers felt a wave of sorrow wash over them. They assured him that his parents loved him and that he was not alone. And with a final, heart-wrenching cry, Samuel's spirit began to fade. The house grew silent, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. The Parkers knew that Samuel had finally found peace, and they vowed to honor his memory. From that day on, Willow House was no longer haunted. The Parkers restored it to its former glory, and it became a symbol of hope and renewal. But the townfolk never forgot the tragic tale of Samuel, the child who had waited so long for his parents, and the couple who finally helped him find his way home.